one criticism that's been leveled at you, or something that kind of comes in along the sides, around the edges, is the kind of, who does he think he is? And as I understand it, the basic idea is, look, there's lots of people at NSA that knew what you knew. There was probably lots of people at NSA, maybe the majority of the people that weren't in charge, who were squeamish about it, who didn't think it was quite right, who didn't think you were quite squaring with the American people. Now, you thought what you did is right. Do you think the failure of all those other people means that they were wrong? Do you think you had a duty to do what you did so that everyone else must have had the same duty? Or is it just that no one was obliged to do this, but still it's a good thing if somebody does? We're trying to figure out just how you thought of it. Did you really think you were someone special? And if so, what made you special? Was it just that you're the only one who's you?
I'm certainly not in any regard like that. And it is a fair question. This is something that needs to be asked by everyone confronting these kind of positions. But again, it comes back to a principle of inferior and superior obligations. You have a civil agreement, this wonderful SF-312, and then you have an oath to the Constitution. Now, it obligates you, if you see unconstitutional activity, to act to try to correct that, to curtail that, to improve that in some way. And people can say, well, we have elected officials who should know about this. But the problem was they didn't know about it. This failed comprehensively at all levels, including the most senior official in the national intelligence community, Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, who actually made a false statement under oath to Congress on camera in front of the nation and said that the NSA was not, in fact, collecting any information at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans.
Ed, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to interject something there. So, I mean, there are lots of people positioned as you were. Well, not a huge number, but a fair number of people positioned as you were. You acted singularly. I believe you took what you thought to be the action of last resort, right? But the thing you just said made me wonder something. I watched that clip of Clapper lying to, it was Senator Wyden, I think, who asked him that question. Why didn't you contact his staff and him and say, you've just been lied to. Come over to my office, and then you go through Congress rather than risk exile and imprisonment. I mean, I think the government wants to put you in prison for a very long time.
Life or more, if they get what they would like. But it is a fair thing, and the issue there is that Senator Wyden knew he had been lied to, but he had no capability to reveal that. Had he told Director of National Intelligence James Clapper that he was lying on the floor of Congress, he would have lost his seat on the Senate Intelligence Oversight Committee because he would have revealed classified information. And this is something that he has himself said. He provided the questions 24 hours in advance. So it was no surprise to the director. He has people who brief him, who prepare his statements in advance. And he also told the director 24 hours after the fact that he had given false testimony and he should correct it. The director instead declined, said no. And we, the public, of course, I sitting at my desk knew about this, as did my colleagues, that it was a lie. But he didn't correct this until after it was made public in the media in the wake of the 2013 revelations. And so I think the real challenge here is if there is an opportunity within the system to correct the unconstitutional behavior, of course, an individual will take that path because it is less costly to them. That's where the incentives lie. But again, the system failed comprehensively. Rather than 535 members of Congress knowing about these programs, only the so-called Gang of Eight was briefed on covert action programs. Of these, because the Gang of Eight is comprised of the most senior members of Congress, they have very little understanding of technology. They're not allowed to bring in aides who understand it to get it reviewed. And the level of oversight that we enjoy as a society suffers because of this. Correspondingly, the courts tried to review these programs. In May 2013, this was brought before the Supreme Court in a case called Amnesty versus Clapper, but they rejected it, saying because no one could prove that they had been spied on, even though it was in fact occurring, the case was speculative, and they shouldn't. The court had no standing, no capability to review it, to render a decision, and so the courts were frozen out. The majority of Congress was frozen out. the public was frozen out. And the executive itself, the director of national intelligence, just a few days ago, his lawyer, Bob Litt, said that the reason he gave that false statement was because he simply forgot about it. He had forgotten about a program that was spying on millions of Americans.